You have a pimple on your forehead.
You have a pimple literally on your entire face. Like, everywhere on your face is pimples.
Yeah, but mine blends in by now. Like, yours is like, whoa, you got a pimple.
No, it doesn't.
No, it does. You got the makeup.
Baby, what's the deal? You wanna watch Netflix and chill? Baby, I'm for real. I won't pull out if you want the pill. Baby, what's the deal? You wanna watch Netflix and chill? Baby, I'm for real. I won't pull out if you want the pill.
Hey guys, it's Carly, back on the couch with episode number 7 of the Netflix and Chill Horror Podcast. And as always, I am joined here with
JP, son.
Heck yeah, and today is JP's pick. So for this week, what did you pick?
I picked Evolution from 2015, but had its debut in wide release form via Netflix in 2017. Had like a festival circuit run last year. It made a few top 10 lists. I've seen it around, so I was familiar with the film. Based on that, I decided to go with it.
Yeah.
So, Evolution, it is a film that is directed by, I believe, a French director, and it's a female, actually. So, one of you.
Yes, that is correct. That is what we are. You want to say that name? Want to give it a go?
Lucille Hadzihalilovic.
I think you might have added an extra Lee in there, but I mean that seems legit enough.
You should try.
Lucille Hadzihalilovic.
That's exactly what I said.
You said Lee.
No,
it looks like
no,
whatever.
No.
It's cool. It's cool.
All right, so she actually wrote and directed this film with a couple other writers that are, I'm not even going to try to pronounce more names. so we'll just stick with Lucille. And basically, this film is like I said, a French film, and it is a French-Belgium-Spain co-production. The language is in French. And like I mentioned earlier, it is getting its official wide release via Netflix. This director, I am somewhat familiar with her work. I have not seen any of her other films, but I do know that she worked on, as a writer, she worked on Enter the Void. Which I've heard things about. And I do know that she is a notable French director. Like, I think I've heard people review one or two of her films before. She hasn't done a whole lot. I guess Innocence would be the other film that, if I'm remembering correctly, I might have heard something about. But it's always hard with films that are titled Innocence, you know? Yeah. It's such a common type of name. There's probably hundreds of films called Innocence. Anyway, so we're going to get into the synopsis on this one here, if you want to, Carly.
Alrighty. It says, the only residents of young Nicholas's seaside town are women and boys. When he sees a corpse in the ocean one day, he begins to question his existence and surroundings. Why must he and all the other boys be hospitalized?
I think that's a pretty solid description courtesy of the IMDb, or as the Exploding Heads homies call it, the B? I think they call it the B, or do they call it the D? I think they call it the B.
Yeah.
The B. It's on the B, Holmes. Evolution. This is a film that got a little bit of buzz last year. Towards the end of the year, I was seeing it pop up on some top 10 lists, but it was mainly people who go to the festivals and have access to these films. Like, this is a film that I would no way be able to see until 2017, so it is eligible for 2017 top 10 lists, in my opinion, under my criteria. It is available. Whether it'll make it, well, we'll get to that. And thanks to everybody who listened to last week's episode, which was the Santa Clarita Diet episode. I know a whole lot of people didn't get a chance to check it out because we did go spoiler-filled.
Yeah.
But we're back to spoiler-free. Even though this film is probably going to be kind of hard to talk about without spoiling. So, with that said, let's go ahead and hop into the film. So, what do you think?
Well, I mean, starting off, like, my first impression was it had really beautiful visual things. Like, the lighting was really good, and just, like, the thing, like, he was filming the ocean, and, like, it was just very... She, the director of this film, was filming the ocean. And
I mean, technically, if you really want to break it down, it would probably be the director of photography or the camera operator or something.
Whoever
could have been
had the camera.
But it was the director's choice to film the ocean.
Yeah. But, like, I thought that was pretty nice. And then, like, the location, the setting was kind of eerie because it's just, like, this weird, like, tiny... like island, I guess, with just, like it says, women and boys are the only ones living on it. So.
Yeah, and this is a film that doesn't specifically come right out and say, like, oh, there's only little boys and women on this island. Unless you read the synopsis, you wouldn't even know that until you got... because I didn't even read the synopsis. And, you know, at a certain point... I might have heard somebody mention it in a review, so it didn't take me long to figure it out. But I was like, hey, where's all the men, you know? Because I kind of had forgot about that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I think this is that film where they mentioned that. So I actually wish that I remembered the reviews, because I would be curious to see what people's thoughts are on this film. I even messaged Brandon from Exploding Heads earlier today, and I was like, hey, have you seen Evolution yet? Because I just wanted to bounce opinions off of somebody else before we actually sat down and recorded the review, because we spoke very little about it when we watched it. I know I just asked, like, yay or nay, and then, you know, I just gave my yay or nay type thing just to see where we was both at. But we don't really talk about the films before we get into the reviews on this show. And, you know, I do gotta, you know, reiterate what you said about the beginning of the film. Certain movies, to me, are instantly interesting or captivating based on, like, establishing shots. And right away I was interested in the film simply by the mood that it set in the first 5 minutes, the colorful palette of the ocean. And when I say colorful, I mean that in a weird way, because there is a lack of color in this film, but it seems like the ocean is a little bit more vibrant, but everything else seems kind of washed out in, like, brown and gray. And
I liked how the boys, like, pants and, like, the starfish were, like, bright red.
Yeah,
that seemed to pop out. But, like, I agree, like, everything else is just kind of, like, very... like,
different shades of dirt.
Yeah.
And rocks.
Yeah.
Like, even, like, the buildings, like, they're white, but they're, like, a... you know,
very dull.
Dull white. And, like, even the... you know, females, they all have sort of a reddish hair. Not all of them, but like, it seems like a dark reddish hair, but it's not even like a bright red, like, vibrant hair. It's like washed out looking red hair, like a dirty red hair almost. And they're all, like, pale skin for the most part.
You actually, it's hard to tell, like, people apart, because
I think that was intentional.
Yeah, I thought so too. Like, even the boys too, like, I had trouble telling apart. And then, like, yeah, the girls were all just very dull and plain looking. Yeah. Which was interesting.
So, they were... I think it was intentional that all of the adult female characters kind of looked similar. I think it lends to the mythology of this film, which is not really established as we are watching the film. Like, it's definitely one of those films that... the classic style over substance. It 100% is style over substance. Now, when I say style over substance, I mentioned this before, I believe, on this podcast and others as well. I don't mean that there is no substance. I just mean that there is a stylistic choice over a narrative story. And that is this film in a nutshell. Most of the film, if not all of the film, you're wondering what's going on. And if you're like me with films, there's so much to really say about the style choice in this film that I'm hoping that I'm not going to jump around everywhere. But just to start off, like, some of the things that I was thinking was, anytime I watch a film like this, I ask myself, is there an answer to these questions? Does the director / writer know what's happening but choose not to inform the audience in a direct way, but choose to inform the audience in an indirect way via, you know, sort of subliminal type things, or sort of undertones and things like that.
Yeah.
And anytime I watched a movie like this, if that answer is no, then I'm mad.
Yeah.
If I don't think the director knows what they're, trying to say, and they're just doing weird shit for the sake of doing weird shit, then I get mad because I feel like that's not good filmmaking. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would have to agree. And, with this movie, I noticed, you're right about the style over substance, because there's really not a lot of dialogue, mm-hmm. but it keeps me wanting to know what's going on, just because it's you're constantly staring at the script, because this is subtitled too, so I'm constantly waiting for someone to say something and see okay, what's going on, are they going to explain it? But my main problem with this movie is that I was kind of left confused. I knew something weird was going on, but I feel like I didn't figure out exactly what that weird thing was by the end.
Yeah, this is a weird movie to talk about because there's not much to spoil because there's really not much told to you, and there's mm-hmm. no real reveals. There's tiny ones here, but they're nothing that you wouldn't really expect, judging by what you're seeing early on in the film. And also, it's a lot of suggestion. It's a lot of up for interpretation. So it's really kind of hard to spoil something that you don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So at this point, I think it's just a lot of theories and, sort of just up for your own sort of opinions on what the film is. Now, the other thing that I like to think when I watch movies like this is what is going to happen by the end. If I'm watching a movie and I am intrigued in a movie like this, sometimes I expect for all the cogs to fit into place by the end for me to be oh, I see what they're doing here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
I didn't really get that sense in this film.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got I got a pieced together portion of this story, what I think it kind of means. But even when I come to that conclusion and I decide what I think that some of the things sort of mean, I'm not overly impressed with what it is, what yeah. I'm coming up with. So on one hand, I feel like there wasn't enough there for an intelligent viewer like myself, which I do consider myself an intelligent viewer. I've watched a lot of movies like this, mm-hmm. and I usually could come away with something. So I don't think there's enough for an intelligent viewer to really grasp and really fit together a story or a narrative. But also, I'm confusing myself talking right now.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't know, because you said you were trying to piece together, your idea of what the movie meant, and, mm-hmm. I couldn't even really do that. It was almost like trying to piece your dreams back together after you mm-hmm. wake up, to me. I couldn't even think of an explanation. The ending, I see what happened, but I'm just why was what was happened previously, what was going on there?
Yeah. So, basically, to sort of let you guys in on what's happening a little bit in the film, is we have an island town. It's very small. Is all we're shown in the film really is the ocean front, the little villa, which is made of stone. It's kind of a, I don't know, something. Maybe Middle Eastern or something.
Yeah, that's what it made me think of. I don't know what you would call that type of setup.
But. Yeah, and we only really see the interior of one building and a hospital. Mm. And that's kind of it as far as set pieces go.
And there's really nothing in the buildings either. There will be a table, chair, and bed. Yeah,
so at first you might be thinking that okay, this is maybe a period piece or something like that. Mm. And then you might be thinking, okay, this is in a second or third world country.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But I was kind of thinking that it was modern the whole time, just in sort of a section
Weird.
of the world that we don't, that doesn't really get a whole lot of light shine on it. So besides that, we have one character that we're kind of following who's a little boy, But even that character we don't learn much about. Like,
No.
there's not a lot of dialogue. There's little to no exposition.
Yeah.
At all. And you're kind of just sitting in the dark most of the film. And that's fine to do. And I did like the mystery. Like, I was very intrigued. Like, and I watched it last night, and I was like almost like in a hypnotic state while watching it, because it is very beautiful. Like, if you're going to say anything about this film, the director definitely filmed a beautiful film.
Yeah, definitely. One of the most beautiful I've seen in a long time, actually.
Yeah, it's very pretty to look at. It has a great atmosphere to it. Very mysterious, like, dreamlike atmosphere.
Yeah.
And we're seeing just a lot of scenes of things that are not really explained to us. So you can kind of piece together, for the most part, that it seems like that the title alone in this film is a hint at what is going on here. Mm-hmm. And it's some sort of evolution, whether it is a pre-form of our evolution or a post-form of our evolution. That's sort of not really explained right away, or maybe even at all. Is this what we used to be? A form of us that, like a missing link, perhaps? Or is this something that we're going to become? It's basically, you look at, like, any sort of animal or, like, history of a species or something that lives really close to the water is, partially, like, a water-dwelling creature. You know what I mean? So I'm not really saying that these people that we're following are creatures or anything, but they definitely have some sort of different attributes to them compared to us. So we noticed that that there is no males. There's no adult males.
And it's, like, I actually didn't even really think about that until after I watched the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't paying attention to that until I saw the, like, synopsis, and it was like, only women and boys are here. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
So I think that is a key, I guess, clue to what's going on, because if you look at it and you see, okay, there are only grown adult women and little boys. Mm-hmm. There are no little girls. There are no adult males. So at first you might just look at it like there's no adult males.
Yeah.
But then you look at it, if you look closer, you'll be like, oh, there's no child girls either.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? And I really don't know. Like, I guess, like, you would think that it's like, okay, do they raise the boys and they become the women? Or do the boys stay boys and the adult women stay adult women, and then they sort of inbreed somehow there? Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, because they definitely start to show some of their breeding processes. Yeah. But I really don't have a clear idea of what it is. I just know that the women need the boys to breed, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. I don't know how, though. I don't think they're having sex or anything like that.
No,
I don't think there's any child molestation going on.
I think it has to do with the, like, hospital stuff that's going on somehow. But
yeah, so I feel like they are, there's a word for it, I'm not a scientist, but there's a word for being able to reproduce without sex. Yeah. It's like asexual reproduction or some shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, sounds legit.
Sounds legit. We'll just roll with that.
Yeah.
But are they hermaphroditic? Maybe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Or do they... It's really kind of not answered as far as I can tell.
Well, it's good that you brought up, like, about the guys not being there, the grown men, because that does kind of open my mind a little bit more. Because I really wasn't thinking that far into it. But, I mean, that doesn't really answer any of the questions, but, like, it gives out more interpretation ideas.
Yeah, there is a scene where we see, like, an orgy of sorts. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's sexual. And I don't really understand what that was supposed to represent. Was that supposed to represent childbirth? Or was that supposed to represent, using some sort of, technique to stay the way they are or something like that? I don't really know.
It was a dark scene too. Like I couldn't really see what was happening completely. So I really don't know, but
yeah. So at the end of the day, like what I sort of took away from it is there's this village where only little boys and grown women exist. Whether they make it that way, whether they are going in and messing with things to ensure that it stays that way, that's another question. I don't know. Are they sabotaging their race to only be this way, or is it even sabotaging at all? Is it something that is better for them? These are all questions that I'm sort of wondering while watching the movie, and I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, and at the end of the day, like I think that I just came to the conclusion on my own terms that, okay, I don't know why, but there are adult females and children males, and the adult females must do things to the younger males to create life, and whether it's judging by certain things that happen in the film, I think that it's not good, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially judging by the ending. And I think that one of the mothers has a strong bond with their child maybe and doesn't want to keep doing it, is kind of what I was getting. But I'm not really sure. And I think that that's like one of the biggest problems with this movie, is that I don't know if there is this type of answers.
Yeah.
I think that the director was trying to show like a coming of age, prepubescent look at males, but in the role of females or something.
Yeah, because it even says like, why do I have to do this? And the mom's like, oh, because you're like getting to be that age or something.
Yeah. So like, I think that the males, the children, are actually the ones that are reproducing.
Yeah, it's reversed roles.
Yeah, instead of an adult woman birthing children, it's children males who are birthing children. But I don't know, are they birthing adult females, or are they birthing little children? Little male children. It's really weird, guys.
I'm pretty sure it's like children, but then like I don't know about the females. Like, are the females just the same females forever that are just there, and that's like they just stay that age forever or something? Because like, yeah.
Or
like
do
they can't be birthing like grown ass women.
Or are the male children eventually become the adult females?
That makes sense too. I don't know. I mean, like sense is a strong word for that, but I don't really know.
I also was wondering, and this is just like there's not a ton of evidence to this, but I also was wondering if there is a little bit of social commentary on pollution in this film. If all of this has to do with, and it's very, very, very minor hint towards it, if it even is at all. I could be misinterpreting it, but I was wondering if, and I'll talk to you about it after the podcast.
I think I kind of know what you mean already. But.
And I was wondering if it had something to do with pollution, like an anti-pollution film.
But because of the ending, like shot kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering if if this is more of a mutation and not like necessarily well, I guess mutations are evolutions technically. Yeah. So I was wondering, actually the more that I think about it, probably is.
Because like, and then like all that kind of the beautiful like shots of like the nature and stuff kind of makes more sense. Yeah. With that theory.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's up with the starfish?
I was wondering, I was going to ask you about that. It was like a symbolic thing, it seemed like, but like I really don't know. Because like, yeah, he's like keeping that starfish as a pet, isn't he? Like in a bowl.
Yeah. I don't. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, like there's a starfish,
and it keeps coming up in the movie.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because like I was thinking that the starfish was significant, or at least maybe it's significant in foreshadowing the type of things that they are. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Because they do have like those suction cups and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if that's what it is. This film could have definitely benefited from a little more dialogue. Even if you're not going to explain things, I feel like the character development wasn't necessarily there for any of the characters, but mainly the lead male character who we're following. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't really know anything about him. Like, we can't really necessarily like him or root for him because we don't really know him.
Yeah.
And I've argued many, many times in the past, like, you don't need to like your characters. But when you're talking about a film like this, which is like literally just a film about like shots and following one person, like you kind of need to know a little bit about them. Mm. I really, really am torn on this movie because I liked it and I was very intrigued, but I find it very difficult to really interpret what the director wants me to interpret or what their intentions was, and if they even had intentions for the viewer to interpret. Yeah. That's frustrating to me. And I think that frustrating is one of the fatal flaws in any movie. Like, I don't want to be frustrated by thinking of the movie. I like when there are answers. They don't necessarily have to tell them to me, but I need there to exist answers. Mm-hmm. And I find it like, you know, I'll just reference a film like this, like the film Cemetery Man, which you have not seen, but we reviewed on 22 Shots, is very confusing, sort of, not necessarily in the vein of this, but, you know, similar, like, style of just not explaining everything. But I feel like there's tons of answers in that film. Like, it's all answers, but you just have to look for them. This film, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there are answers.
Yeah, it's very hard to wrap your head around. Like, I mean, it kept me interested, but, like, that's always a problem with me if I feel confused towards the end, and then, like, I ask other people, hey, is there an answer to this? And they don't know the answer either, because sometimes I'll miss stuff, and, like, it might be my fault, but in this case, it was just, like, there's so much that you just don't understand.
Well, you watched this before me.
Yeah.
And you did mention that it was kind of confusing, so I made... which I mentioned that we don't really talk much about it, but that is one thing that you did mention to me. So I made sure to pay extra close attention to this one.
Yeah,
I didn't get anything further than probably what you did.
Yeah.
I just have a basic gist of a concept that I
you caught up good ideas. But even, like, the ideas you think of, like, you can't really come to a conclusion after them.
Yeah,
they're
it's
just, like tiny theories.
There's just, like, a idea, and it's, like, on a blank page, and then it's like there's just 1,000 question marks around my idea.
This whole time we've been talking, you've been saying stuff, and I'm like waiting for you to be like, oh, here's the answer, and then you're just like, oh, I don't really know, and then I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I really, really, really do not know what the hell's going on in this movie. I have basic concepts, but even those are highly questionable. I do like that the film had like good music and it was shot well, and I love the setting. I just wanted a little bit more from the director. I wanted him to bring it a little bit more, and there's definitely this director I feel like is definitely one of those directors who take the art side of filmmaking very seriously.
Yeah, and
that is sometimes a flaw when you're trying to have a career in filmmaking and you want to appeal to as wide of an audience as possible. I don't think there's many directors who just go in there and be like, I want 10 people to see my film and love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. Like, this isn't gonna appeal to just the general audience who's looking for something fun to watch late at night. Like, none of my friends would appreciate this movie, and like, even I was kind of like, just like, like, I wasn't really feeling it, but I just know, like, no one's really gonna like this if they're not really big into horror and appreciate filmmaking.
Well, I wouldn't even say horror, because this is not really a horror film, per se.
Yeah, it's more...
It's more of like a art house drama.
Yeah.
And art house filmmakers would probably love this. Like, Jeremy, who loves two things in life, it seems like. He loves art house films and he loves French films. And this just happens to be both of them.
Yay.
I would actually be very curious to hear what he has to say about it. I'm actually going to tell him to watch it because he's a pretentious douchebag. So this seems right up his alley. I really am curious to go back and listen to podcasts that had this on their top 10 list from last year. I know Shockwaves was one of them that did have this film. Somebody from Shockwaves. Just to see what they had to say, because I don't remember what they had to say. And honestly, when I haven't seen a film, I like to tune out what they have to say because I don't really want to know much about a movie before I watch it, especially when I'm judging it for my own potential top 10 list. And is there anything else to say about Evolution?
I mean, like, for one thing, what were they eating? Was that like... It looked like they were eating ground up starfish, and like I thought that was kind of disturbing, like for horror aspects at least. It was gross. And then like
cool bringing that up.
Yeah, and then like the hospitalization. Like I'm just naming like random horror elements that kind of disturbed me. Like there was like close ups of like bellies being like poked, and I don't like anything near my belly button personally. That's just like something that makes me feel queasy. So. Yeah. Like, I did appreciate those body horror type things.
I do think that what they were eating was supposed to be something similar to that of what a, water animal would eat. Like a starfish or something, you know what I mean? Like
it looked like they just went into the ocean and, like, scooped up whatever they could find.
As far as the, actual gore and stuff like that in this film, one thing that always bugs me, and it's not necessarily even like the cutting, it's whenever they put that little plastic thing with the cutout hole over something they're going to operate on, doctors or whatever, and then they rub that brown
that's like what I was, iodine or whatever. They did, like when I would donate blood, that's what they put on you, and it creeps me out because it's just like this, it just feels like this wet substance they're putting on me, and I know what's coming next, and I'm just like, oh no. I used
to donate blood as well.
Yeah.
But like so that always kind of it's like the anticipation of the slicing that actually gets me more than the slicing itself.
Yeah, I used to be afraid of needles, but now I'm more about the build up of the process.
Yeah. So this movie, a good thing bringing up like some of the horror moments, because we really talked about this movie and didn't mention anything along the lines of horror at all. It's definitely not a scary movie.
I wasn't creeped out.
Yeah, it's just there's some levels of body horror going on there, and that's kind of it, just a lot of questions. So, did you want to hop into ratings?
Yeah. Do I go first, or do you go first?
It is my pick, so you go first.
Yes. With like the confusion and everything, that kind of turns me off from movies a lot, but for the visual effects, I thought that was an A+. I came in with a 5.5 out of 10 for this one. I mean, I would check it out if you're into like artsy type movies and style over substance, but just like the unanswered questions did not do it for me.
So that really hurt the rating for you then?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm coming in a little bit different. And I actually really enjoyed this movie. I'm not going to lie. I do think it's a well-made movie. And my criticisms on not being in touch with what's going on is sort of floating criticisms. Like, they can go away. Because if there is all this interesting stuff that the director was actually saying that does exist, then my criticism should not be for being against that type of stuff, you know what I'm saying? So right now I'm gonna come in at this is kind of hard because I don't actually, I was someplace and then I kind of talked myself down a little bit, so let's just go with a 6.5 out of 10. So I was at a 7 before we started recording. I did talk myself down a little bit because I do think that some of the choices made in the film, some of the stylistic choices over some of the narrative-driven aspects of the film, doesn't really appeal to your average film goer, including myself, who does like a wide variety of films.
Yeah, and that's what affected my rating too. I thought, like, well, this is okay to me, but like I know most people probably aren't going to love it. Mm-hmm. And you gotta work on that type of stuff when you're making a movie.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, if there are all these answers and I'm just too dumb to pick them up, then it's not really fair for me to criticize the film for those aspects. I'm kind of torn on it, really, so I decided to just go with 6.5. I do think it's worth watching, but definitely not at the top of the queue. This is like something that you watch on Netflix when, you know, it's kind of dying down and you don't really have a bunch of stuff in your queue anymore. It does have like a 1 star on Netflix, so the average film goer. I actually heard a few people say that it was complete trash. So we'll see how, you know, once more reviews come out, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that was Evolution.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed our review of Evolution. You can check that out on Netflix if you so choose to. And JP, what else was that you wanted to talk about before we got on out of here?
Yeah, there's a few things. First of all, if you haven't joined our group page, please do. You know, that's something we want to throw out every once in a while, pretty much every show.
Yeah.
It's still a little low in numbers, but it's becoming more active. And speaking of that, I try to share news that's happening in the streaming world on that group page. And there's a few things that happened over the last 2 or so weeks that I thought were noteworthy, and I figured we could have a quick discussion on them. I'm really trying to get more involved in the world of streaming because I really never was in the past. Like, I own Netflix and I would watch it occasionally, and that's pretty much it, mostly for non-horror things.
Yeah.
But now that our whole show is centered around streaming, I'm trying to bring that more into my world. You know, I'm trying to see what's going on in streaming. Before, I just didn't care that much when I seen something pop up on Netflix or, you know, something get announced for Netflix. But now I'm starting to get really involved in it. So the first thing that I wanted to share and talk about really quickly is Death Note, which I was not super familiar with. The only thing that I knew about it was that Adam Wingard was adapting it. And Adam Wingard, of course, is a director that really made a big splash on the indie scene with a film called Horrible Way to Die, and then he did Autoerotic, What Fun We Were Having, and then he got his first like real big budgety type movie, which was You're Next, and eventually did segments for VHS, VHS2, as well as ABCs of Death. He did The Guest, which a lot of people loved, and then he got his first like huge studio movie, which was Blair Witch, which a lot of people hated. I know you loved.
Yeah, I did like it. I didn't think it was that bad at all.
Yeah, you actually got scared by it. I referenced you in our review, and
I'm pretty sure you were creeped out too in the theater.
I did. I admit it. I was like, yeah, there was some creepy moments to it.
Yeah.
And Moods did not want to hear that. But anyway, he also is tagged on to do the I Saw the Devil remake, which is, I believe, a Park Chan-wook film, or Wook Chan Park, however you... Asian, I don't know if you know how, like...
Yeah, that's their, like... Isn't it, the names are like backwards or reversed or something
it's
weird
something like that. Yeah. But he's also working on Death Note, which is now completed, I believe, and is just in sort of post-production, and it's going to get released later this year. Anyway, a trailer came out for it. I never, ever watched trailers, but because I wanted to talk about it on this show, I figured I would watch the trailer. I won't even get into why I don't watch trailers. It's been well documented by this point. Listen to my other podcast if you know you're curious about that. I always talk about it. But Death Note. So the trailer came out. It's more of like a teaser trailer, I would say, because I think it's like under a minute long.
Yeah, it's not very long at all.
This is a Netflix original film, and I do not know a ton about the source material, but just based on my very, very limited knowledge, from what I understand, it was an anime that was adapted into, or it was a manga, which is like a book. Mm-hmm. It's like I guess similar to like a graphic novel.
Yeah,
I think. and it was adapted into an anime film or TV series. I can't remember.
It's a TV series. I remember back in school, like, a lot of kids really liked that one.
Oh, so you're actually familiar with this then?
Yeah, like, people were actually pretty big fans of it. I myself don't really know anything about it personally because I've never gotten into anime. Like, a lot of people, like, live for that stuff, but, like, I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me. But yeah, I know, it was actually pretty popular for some people back in the day.
Alright, so that's interesting. I had no idea you knew anything about it. But yeah, so it was an anime, and apparently this is like a live action adaptation of that. And first of all, let's just briefly say what we thought of the trailer. What did you think?
I thought it looked pretty interesting. I mean, I kind of knew about the story beforehand, and I think it's cool to, like, turn that into a live action movie. Like, it looks pretty good. Like, some of the scenes looked crazy to me, so I'd definitely be interested in checking it out. Yeah.
So I thought it looked cool. You know, there's not much to go off on the trailer. I thought it was like, okay, I'm down with the concept. Like, there's a book that if you write somebody's name in it, they die or whatever. Like, that sounds cool to me. So, yeah, that's good enough for me right away. But then, like, getting into, like, the, you know, reveal of this trailer, like, it just seemed like nothing but hate, man. Like, it was just, I just seen a bunch of people talking about how, like, oh, this is nothing like the source material and stuff. And, like, I understand that gripiness a little bit, because if I'm very close to something, like, here's an example, Resident Evil. Like, Resident Evil is probably my favorite, or at least top 5 favorite games of all time. The original Resident Evil, in the mansion, the Spencer estate. I love that game. Umbrella Corporation, Jill, Chris, Wesker, Barry, Rebecca, all them people. Love it. Love that game. The snake battle and, you know, the zombies and the survival horror. I know nothing about that game. It's awesome. Anyway, the film is absolutely nothing like the original
I've heard.
And I understand that. Like, I don't take it personal or whatever. And, you know, anytime you ever hear, like, a Stephen King adaptation or anything, people are always like, oh, well, the book was better. Well, of course the book was better. It's what you read first. It's you can explain more in a book than on film. It's just, that's the way it is. Like, rarely is a film adaptation better than a book.
Yeah, you can't have every scene in a movie. And like you said, like, books have more detail in them.
Yeah.
Like, you can't expect them to be on, like, camera, like, reciting the lines from the book, because then it's not going to be good.
Yeah, so, you know, that was something that I noticed that was, like, people were just, like, pissed off that this shit was, like, not like the source material. And I don't know, like, it kind of, it bugs me a little bit, because I'm like, I don't really care if it's like the source material that much. You know what I mean? I'm not familiar with the source material. That doesn't bug me. Like, I think, like, they even were saying something about how, like, the original, I think I read people saying, like, the original was, like, an Asian guy, and, like, this is, like, not an Asian guy. So fucking what?
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Like, even, like, I haven't really read a lot of books, like, before seeing movies, but even when I do that, like, I expect it to be different. Like, you can't expect it to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
And, like, like, animes, I know they're done really well, so I can understand why, like, hardcore fans would probably be a little bothered by it. But, I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's gonna be...
Yeah,
it's live action. It can't be, like, exactly like an anime if it's for real.
Yeah, and another thing is, like, honestly, dude, like, Netflix appeals to a mass audience, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and most of that audience is not, like, fans of anime. So, honestly, like, I think that probably it was, like, a good choice to change some things, you know?
Yeah.
Like, anime does not appeal to everybody, including me. Like, I don't like it. Like, I've tried to watch a few things, and and I'm just not into it.
Like, I can watch it if I'm with a group of friends or something that likes it, but I would never go back in and watch it by myself, is my thing.
Yeah, so I understand, like, certain aspects of, like, if you are really close to the source material, like, yeah, of course it's going to make you a little bit mad when they go and change a bunch of things, but I was mainly talking about, like, the ridiculous reaction that I've seen to some of the people, and it was nobody in, like, our group or, like, 22 Shots or anything. It was mainly, like, people just on the internet that were just, like, just bitching up a storm, and it's, like, whatever, you know, like, I think that stuff's a little silly sometimes, but, like, I want to say that, for one, I don't really think that the characters that are in anime look Asian at all anyway. They look,
honestly,
they look
like,
American to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I never even thought about that. Like, Americans draw, like, in cartoons, like, the Asians look like Asians, but anime is, like, its own different, they got those, like, huge square eyes, and, like, yeah, you couldn't even tell what they were. Yeah.
Here's a funny comment. There's on the original post that Netflix did, it says, this is from Robert Bolin, and he says, anime fans are such obsessive elite. Sorry, obsessive elitists. They want anime to be more popular, but every time an American studio tries to make a live action film based on an anime, they act like it's worse than cancer. This movie looks fine. If you want an adaptation that's so painstakingly identical to the anime, then it just ends up looking like a cosplay convention. Then watch the Japanese live action films. This looks like an actual movie with real effort and production value put into it. Given the premise of Death Note and the general style and appearance of this trailer, I imagine the Netflix movie will be very popular among anyone who's not some elitist weeboo anime snob. You know, that kind of sums it up for me. That's like the vibes that I was getting. Maybe I would have said it a little less dickish.
Yeah. You call them weeaboos.
Yeah. But then, I mean, that guy has 15,000 up likes, or whatever they're called, you know. So that's pretty crazy. And then this guy actually has 3,000 likes. He says, that's because, and this is a little bit of a counter, that's because we don't want adaptations or original films based on. You're absolutely right. Some of us complain too much, but we just want everyone to experience these stories how they should be. I don't know, man.
I mean, like,
you could want me to experience. You can want me to see your anime stuff, but if I'm not interested, I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like the same with books. Like, if I don't, like, some people don't like reading and they just like watching movies. That's why they make the adaptation for that book.
Yeah.
So everyone's got their own taste and stuff.
Yeah, and honestly, I would look at it this way, right? I would probably have never seen Death Note. Period.
Yeah.
Not on my radar at all, but now that this movie is coming out,
yeah,
I'm interested in knowing what it is. Mm-hmm. So if anything, it made a person who is completely not interested in anime, the only anime that I've ever got into was Dragon Ball Z, which I love. I love Dragon Ball Z. I still watch it to this day. But I don't like anime. I've tried to watch other things. I just don't like it. Dragon Ball Z was just, I liked it because of the story.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I'm now interested in Death Note. So if I like this movie, I would see the source material. If I don't like this movie, I still might see the source material because I want to see, like, what everybody's so mad about.
Yeah, yeah.
So if anything, it got me kind of interested in something that was nowhere near my radar. So I just say, chill out, homies. It's just an adaptation. The original source material will still be there. It's similar to how people get when people remake things all up in arms and stuff. I gave that up a long time ago. So that is our little sort of talk on Death Note. And the other thing that I wanted to sort of bring to the table, and this was reported by Variety.com. And if you want to read some of this, Carly, go ahead.
Get ready to say goodbye to star ratings on Netflix. The company is getting ready to replace stars with Pandora-like thumbs ups and thumbs downs in the coming weeks. Previously given star ratings will still be used to personalize the profiles of Netflix users, but the stars are disappearing from the interface altogether. Netflix VP of
Vice President
of product, Todd Yellen, told journalists on Thursday during a press briefing at the company's headquarters in California that the company had tested the new thumbs up and down ratings with hundreds of thousands of members in 2016. We are addicted to the methodology of A/B testing, Yellen said. The result was the thumbs ups got 200% more ratings than the traditional star rating feature. Netflix is also introducing a new percent match feature that shows how good of a match any given show or movie is for an individual subscriber. For example, a show that should close to perfectly fit a user's taste may get a 98% match. Shows that have less than a 50% match and won't display a match rating, however. Dude said that the company completely relied on its users rating titles with stars when it began personalization some years ago. At one point, it had over 10 billion 5-star ratings, and more than 50% of all members had rated more than 50 titles. However, over time, Netflix realized that explicit star ratings were less relevant than other signals. Users would rate documentaries with 5 stars and silly movies with just 3 stars, but still watch silly movies more often than those high-rated documentaries. We've made ratings less important because the implicit signal of your behavior is more important.
All right, so one thing that I'll say is we also got well, first of all, this comes with anything. If it's YouTube or Facebook or Snapchat or anything that we use daily, when there's change, people get mad.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that with social media.
100%.
Yeah.
I have always been more, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to wait, I'm going to check it out, and if I don't like it, then I'll get mad. I'm not also going to jump and be mad right away because I know that things take a while to get used to.
Yeah.
So I'm the type of person that I'll give it a good couple weeks before I get mad. And YouTube is one of the biggest one. I've been on YouTube as a video maker and a video watcher since YouTube's, creation, like 2005 or something, when it hit big time. But I've been making videos for like 5 or 6 years now. I've seen it change drastically many times. It just changed today. I noticed that there's a new sub-box feature where it's like, like most important subscriptions videos or something like a highlight reel of like, hey, like these are the ones that you probably want to click. So like, I am aware of change all the time, and I've experienced it, but I've never gotten, like, pissed. Now, when this first was announced, I read the headline, Netflix is getting rid of stars and adding thumbs up, thumbs downs. And I was like, oh, that's lame. And everybody else was, oh, that's lame. Like, nobody said anything positive.
Yeah.
Now, after reading the article, which, by the way, is another huge goddamn problem in social media world. Nobody reads the article.
Yeah.
They only read the headline, and they just judge their opinion off of the headline.
And it could be from like 3 years ago and not even relevant.
Or fake.
Yeah.
So I actually read the article, and instantly after reading the article, I thought that it sounded better. I thought that it sounded like it made more sense because it's more of a personalization thing. Like, what do you like, right? Like, if you're rating, it's not what you think is good, it's what you like that it's trying to appeal to more. Because I use that argument with my ratings in general. I rate something a 9, but I might never want to watch that movie again because it's not something that I'm like super interested in. I just know that it's a good, well-made movie. And there is a difference to me. Like, I like stuff like Critters, and I like stuff like, movies that like Mosquito and stuff. I know that those films aren't 9s or 10s, but I love those movies, and I would rather watch them over like The Shining for me. Or like The Exorcist, you know? I know The Exorcist is a 10. I know The Shining is a 10. But I don't want to watch those movies, like, ever. You know, unless I watch them in the theater or something. But, so I kind of understand what they're getting at is, like, they mentioned it, that people will rate some sort of, you know, really well-made documentary a 5-star. And they'll rate something silly a 3-star. And, yes, something silly, like some stupid Adam Sandler movie, is not a great film. Mm-hmm. So I give it a 3. This documentary, Blackfish, was amazing, so I give it a 5. But I don't want to watch Blackfish all the time. I want to watch the stupid Adam Sandler comedy that I could just throw on and eat eat while I'm watching. So I understand where it's like, it's trying to give you recommendations based on what you watch and not necessarily what you think is a great thing. Mm-hmm. So I kind of get that. However, I want to be recommended the great things because I don't watch a lot of Netflix just for fun. And I gotta be honest, when I first got Netflix, I used the rating features all the time. And then it started rating me things that I didn't want to see. It started recommending me things that I didn't want to see based on those ratings. And it came down to like, well, I do rate things that I don't necessarily watch all the time high. That doesn't mean that I want to watch more of it. It just means that I watch it this one time and it's really well made. Yeah. You know? So I do like the like and not like thing. But at the same time, I pretty much like everything. Yeah. To a certain extent. You know what I mean? So, so I don't know how they would, if I see a really shitty horror movie and I give it a thumbs down, that doesn't mean that I don't want to see horror movies anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of a very, like, at least with the stars, it could be like, average 3, like, perfect 5, but like, a like or a dislike is just very, like, to the point.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, guys. Like, I'm kind of torn on it, but I do think that it's a decent experiment. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we'll have to see how it plays out to know if it's gonna work. And honestly, like, I pretty much know what I'm gonna watch on Netflix before.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that too. Like
I know what I like. Yeah. Like, I don't need things to tell me. If anything, like, I think that Netflix, you know, Netflix used to be awesome. When it first came out, you could actually search by year. You could search by title. I mean, not by title, but alphabetically. Yeah. Like, you can get a list of everything available for streaming and search it that way. Now it's like hidden or something. It's like they almost don't want you to know that they don't have that much stuff or something. Mm-hmm. It's weird. You can't browse at everything and search by year anymore. Like, I hate that. They took that away. They made it to where it's like these blocks of like, oh, here's some movies. It's like, well, why can't you just show me all the horror films?
Yeah, I know.
Like, all of them. I don't want to see like supernatural teen screams.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate that so much. That's
and there's all these tabs of like subgenres that I like. Just give me a list of all the fucking horror movies, dude. Yeah. And I'll pick one.
That's the one problem I have with Netflix.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we're gonna get out of here now. We just wanted to kind of comment. What do you guys think? Do you guys like the new system after we have explained it to you on exactly what it is? Because I know you bastards didn't read the article yourself. But yeah, what is your opinions on Death Note? Am I being too harsh? Am I like being too harsh on the anime fans? And they're like, fuck you, dude. You don't know what's good and stuff like that. Alright guys, we're gonna vacate the couch for another 2 weeks and we'll be back 2 weeks from now. It just sounds so much better to say next week. We should go weekly or something.
Yeah, no. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. If everybody downloaded the show and got us in the top 10 of Horrorphilia all the time, then yes, we would go weekly. But one thing that I will say, guys, check out the iTunes feed, subscribe to it. I know there's so many people that didn't cross over from when it was in the 22 shots. Like, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe to our iTunes feed. It's a quick, easy way to get the podcast. You can get it through apps like iTunes, or if you're on Android, Podcast Addict is like my favorite app, so use that. Anyway, we're going to vacate the couch for another 2 weeks. I'm JP.
I'm Carly.
See you next time.
Baby, I'm for real. I won't pull out if you want to feel. listen up, all you little cuties. I might call you over for a movie, but all I really want is the booty. 5 minutes in, we'll be naked and spooning. Next thing that you know, we in my bedroom. Clothes hit the floor. The head was like, damn, looking way better than you do on Instagram. We tried to watch Forrest Gump. She said she was bored. Let's hum. I said, bitch, I gotta take a dump. Lit some incense, then we fuck. I called her a new, but we got 6 minutes for a quick little nooner. So thank you, Netflix, for the marathon of wet dicks. Baby, what's the deal? You wanna watch Netflix and chill? Baby, I'm